you everyone for joining today. Uh, I welcome all of you on behalf of Friends of India Society International. I'm Vivek Sinha, one of the General Secretaries of FISI. I'm welcoming you to this great conference on one of the very important place in the world history today, which is also known as Roof of the World, Tibet, Holy Land. As you know, Friends of India Society International has conducted seminars, workshops, and presentation by a distinguished person on matters of India and the world at large. Friends of India Society plans to educate the friends of India all over the world in support of India causes and the world togetherness. In this series, we have a very dynamic presentation today on this topic by Professor Nawang Lekse. Today's topic is past, present, and future of Tibet Holy Land. As we start the program, please mute yourself throughout as well as during the Q&A. At this time, I have a pleasure to present to you our esteemed leader, the International President of Friends of India Society International, Dr. Bhishma Agnihotri. So without further ado, Dr. Agnihotri, could you please say a few things?
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here at this time again, and it's double pleasure that I had the company of our speaker earlier too. Many years ago, we invited him and with his colleague in New Orleans, a big program, and it was arranged by FISI, of course, and also along with the local chapter of organization. So at that time, it's a very powerful program. We had house full, if he remembers it, a lot of food to eat at that time, and all kind of stuff. But of course, it's a different story, different time. So we will love to hear him. And I know that he's a very good speaker. And the other speaker who was going to come, unfortunately, he could not come because of his personal situation. And but he has promised to come again. He was also there in the program when we had earlier, many years ago, and he has written a great book, and therefore he wanted to come here talk about his interaction with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other. My personal feeling about the whole topic I will talk about later, because this is my favorite subject area. I have worked with these people. I have worked with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I have stayed with him for many months almost, and has been part of his team in a way. And also, I have been otherwise pleased to be in his company many times and learned about him and his passion and future. But I will talk about this later on after the first speaker. Then I will speak a little bit, and then I will request everybody else to join. And I especially requested Dr. Satyanji to express himself on this topic too. Okay, thank you very much. Please start the process.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you, Tashi Dilek. Thank you. This is really honor and really feeling very close to be among supporters of Indian Society International, and especially being born in North Kannada, Karnataka, in 74, and grew up in like vivid memories of playing in different Indian villages and visiting Indian market and all sorts of memories, very positive. So I feel really close and really grateful to be here with this opportunity to share on the topic past, present, and future of Tibet. Dr. Thomas Lehr obviously is not able to join. We were planning to split up the topic. He was going to share on the historical political history, and I was going to share more on present and future Tibet. So little bit on past history of Tibet. Past history, especially, I would like to share two things. One thing, past history, it's really critical when it comes to status of present Tibet. There are different political arguments whether Tibet was historically part of China or not. We see different archival evidence and different documents, historical accounts, biographies, autobiographies, arguing in both sides, either Tibet as part of China or Tibet as independent Tibet. And especially looking at some of the political treaties that Tibet had signed with China, with Nepal, and Shimla Agreement. And there are so many political treaties. Then other accounts on having Tibet its own language, government, and law, customs, and so forth, including Tibetan passport, people traveling on Tibetan passport, Tibetan postal system, and so forth. So these are evidence used to support the stand Tibet as independent country, and militarily invaded in 49. And on the other hand, I think especially since Yuan dynasty, Tibet is claimed as inalienable part of China, presented with a lot of other documents. So I think His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, let's leave the historical accounts to his historians to make the determination whether Tibet was part of China or not. So regardless of that, I think growing up as a kid in Tibetan refugee communities, always, even though never seen Tibet, but always dreamed about free Tibet and independent Tibet, and so stories elders share about Tibetan independence movement, and Chuchigandu and guerrilla movement fighting Chinese military invasion, and those stories and those lived experiences, even it's a second generation, is a very, very memory and very emotional, and talk about those. So I think that's one piece. Other piece, historical, I think I like to emphasize is relationship with India. Relationship with India, and especially beginning from 5th, 6th century, flourishing of Buddhism from India to Tibet, and Tibetan script and Tibetan grammar, Tibetan civilizations, whether it's a Tibetan astrology, Tibetan medicine, or many aspects of Tibetan culture and civilization. I think such a close linkage with the Indian wisdom and Indian thought and Indian civilization. And every scripture we read, like paying homage to India as a Arya Bhumi, and such a close devotion, and we describe that as a Guru Shishya relationship. Really want to emphasize that. And not so distant history. I think since Chinese invasion, so His Holiness Dalai Lama and his government came into cross the border and sought refuge in India. So we have been staying in India as refugees, reestablished Tibetan government, and currently known as Central Administration of Tibet, CTA. So, and we, even though His Holiness Dalai Lama started reforming Tibetan government and political system before Chinese military invasion, starting with addressing some of the landlord-related debt issues and loan issues, and getting rid of some of the corporal punishment, and establishing reform committee and so forth. And having arrived in India, I think we can, even though Tibetan came into India with the two main objectives. One is to regain Tibetan freedom, and another is to make necessary political changes to Tibetan government, starting with drafting of Tibetan democracy constitutions. And you see a lot of linkages with Indian democracy when we look at Tibetan government system and Tibetan democracy, Tibetan democratic movement, if you will. And also to reestablish Tibetan monasteries and Tibetan education system with the help, total help from Indian government, and starting with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, emphasizing Tibetan education of Tibetan children, looking far-sighted, like several generations if it was going to take long. Initially, my parents, they thought like they could return to Tibet in 5-10 years. So education system that was supported and provided by Indian government really helped reestablish Tibetan almost like a second homeland within in India, in different parts of India. Me as in South India, in North Karnataka. So having established government as a democratic form of government, and reestablish some of the education centers and cultural centers, and then to really focus on political movement, initially pursue Tibetan independence, and later His Holiness the Dalai Lama, given the intensity and severity of Tibetan plight and Tibetan way of life inside Tibet, and sought and proposed like a 5-point peace plan, and then the Strasbourg proposal known as instead of independence, and sought middle way approach. Middle way approach emphasizing addressing the urgent immediate needs of Tibetan people inside Tibet. So we had a few different political movements, Tibetan total independence movement and the middle way movement, guided by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and adopted by Tibetan government and Tibetan administration right now in exile. And we also have Satyagraha movement, guided by Professor Samdhor Rinpoche, really emphasizing the truth and truth insistence and individual transformation and societal transformation through that principles and nonviolence and sticking with the truth. We also have a really dynamic strategy and goal, seeking self-determination, which has a very strong like a political historical base, historical like a support. For instance, in 1959, I believe, Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of Taiwan, also supported the self-determination for Tibet. And that was also supported by the passage of United Nations resolution in 1961. So these are 4 different strategies and 4 different political approaches and movement in exile. So my and we have disagreements. You see a lot of like Tibetan even in strategies, disagreement in strategies, and even last 2 elections, people from different candidates orienting different political ideas and strategies, and advocated for specific political strategy and goal. Some advocating for independence, some advocating for middle, like mainly majority advocated for middle way approach. So having observed some of these, and especially from social movement and advocacy standpoint, I see benefits of having an integrative approaches, adopting either of these 4 approaches and strategies, and not like exclusively orienting one over other approaches, but rather try to adopt all of them, try to integrate all of these approaches, and focusing on social and cultural and religious rights, and then focus on political rights. That strategy, that strategy has has been used in international, especially focusing on social, economic, and cultural rights. And then second step, focusing on political rights. But here I am humbly advocating for an integrated approaches, and while addressing immediate needs of Tibetan people inside Tibet. We see not many Tibetan, we don't really have access to inside Tibet. So there are a lot of limitations and a lot of challenges when it comes to assessing and addressing issues inside Tibet. But I strongly believe through different these days of social media, whether it's a letter writing, whether it's a radio conversations, we get information sources are very diverse and not really comprehensive, and but at the same time, it's very representative of different communities inside Tibet. So I feel like it's going to be more helpful to have an integrated approaches addressing social, cultural, and religious needs, and then to address the political. And I see the pros and cons of going the opposite way, addressing the political, fighting for political freedom and political independence first. I see that, but given the immediate needs, I see it's going to be more beneficial. So second, like a humble proposition, I feel like this is like I share among my friends and Tibetan friends and other when I was part of Student for Free Tibet movement when I was in college. Other approach is looking at historical Guru-Shishya relationship with India and the civilization and education and wisdom and compassion, all these insights. I think Guru-Shishya relationship, how can we take this? And because we benefit so much from this. It's based on trust, it's based on devotion, it's based on care for each other. And how can we use this and how can we strengthen this relationship? Maybe slightly different ways. Guru-Shishya relationship, not just in one dimension or one linear, but rather it's a dual role. Dual role, like both are gurus and both are shishyas, and same approach applied to China as well. And it's not just, but the historical knowledge base of Indian thought and Indian wisdom, I think it's a really crucial for this transformation to have a dual role of Guru Shishya with India and China and for future Tibet. I think really important for not just Tibet, it's for higher Asia, higher peak Asia, like in a broader sense. Having such a trust, and maybe this is utopian and idealism, but it's and we see this in history, and we see the fruits of that in the relationship between Tibet and India. Presently, we are refugees, and India is our refuge. So that approach, even once His Holiness said, like if you combine Indian wisdom with the knowledge, and then China will start paying attention. So here it is not simply like a empty vision, but what we are able to establish and achieve with the help of Indian government and many others in diaspora, and especially we can, Tibetan community and Tibetan people can use this as a base, use this as a knowledge base, and then development strategies and movements around that, and focusing not just on a linear relationship, but a developed relationship. So so that's I'll pause here, Dr. Agnihotri.
What's that?
I'll take a pause here and
okay then you can wait for a few minutes.
okay.
I will speak a little bit, then I'll request our other distinguished person to say something, and then of course we will open up for discussion. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a special reason to be involved in this process because I've been very close to this concept of what to do for Tibet. I may disagree with in some ways because I'm a little bit more aggressive in approach in my thinking, because as a lawyer, I think unless you go all the way, you will not get half the way. If you ask half the way, you will not get any way. That's the way I feel about it. So I have been, when I was talking to a lot of occasions to talk to Dalai Lama ji, and we have discussions of different kind. And I always was toward this, that people think that you are too soft. I had to say that to him. But he said that what else I can do? I did understand that too. But when we talked about, for example, there was some mention made, and of course I was one of the reasons talking to him at one time, that why don't you become citizen of India? That he would not agree, because he could understand that his whole past and future is because of Tibet. If Tibet goes away and he becomes citizen of some other country, so what can he talk about Tibet? So that I can talk about other things also to you in private, otherwise too. I had a wonderful time with him, and I also wonderful time his assistants, his the other staffers or the people who lived in that compound, which is called their territory, okay, in that place. But I thought about something else. If you remember, on November 7, 1950, a month after China's new government regime invaded Tibet, India's Deputy Prime Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, wrote to Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. This is the language. The Chinese government has tried to delude us by professions of peaceful intention. Now, let me go on further. You see where it's coming from. They managed to install into our ambassador a false sense of peaceful intention. And to settle the Tibetan problem by peaceful means. they say the action of Chinese, in my judgment, is little short or deceit only. The word is different, perfidy, deceit. And then when keeps on talking. He was a man who was almost sick at that time. He knew what was going on. And there was somebody from the embassy, of course, ambassadors are always inspired by the people around them. They were trying to see, okay, let us not talk too much. Let us not go against them. But anyway, so that was a historic thing I want to mention to you, that there was a feeling at that time on the part of a very prominent person of India that we have to stand up, okay? Don't believe what they're saying. That was the first mistake we made. And we have been making a lot of other mistakes too. Now, yesterday or day before yesterday, there was an article about this issue, by the way. And they say that there is another cultural revolution going on by Chinese, by fusing people, minorities. Of course, as you know, and you are a scholar, 500 years ago, the same thing happened when Manchurians attacked the so-called area, which is now Chinese area, right? Anyway, I went on, if you can keep on talking the details, but fusion policy is what? That they pick up the children when they're 6 or 7 who happen to be from Tibet, and they take them to the places for education only in Chinese, and they educate them in the Chinese values, Chinese meanings. And by the time they are trained, they are totally culturally controlled by Chinese. They try to control them. So they take them away from the mainland, main area. By the way, I had also read, you must have read, a lot of people have read, I think I read a lot of things at one time by Piku Iyer, right? Piku Iyer, he wrote a lot of things about that. One of the articles he wrote was for a magazine which I don't like at this time. He talked about what is going on in Tibet at that time. I'm talking about 2006, I think. The whole place is converted into a noble place, a religious place, a spiritual place, to a negative termed, very, very selfish, non-cultural place. There are places there for wrong people, for all kind of activities. They play, gamble, they drink, they do all those things, and they encourage people. But at this time, as you were very kind enough to say, not to say, that of course there were fight going on all the time. Tibetans didn't give up. I have numbers here. Hundreds of people have been killed. Even in the last, I think, few years, 150 people have committed suicide there because of these things happening. So all these things that are happening in Tibet, Tibet has not given up. The problem is the world has given up. I have here a full picture of what is going on. The people, year after year, every time the international community has talking good about Tibet, do this, do this, do this. They did nothing themselves. Even America did not do anything. They talked about few things, just do here, do there, do there, but they didn't do anything. So therefore, the international community, and I have the articles here, and of course other things by various international agencies, resolution passed by United Nations, by other General Assembly, other people, Commission of Jurists, this and that, all of them are talking about it, but nobody is doing anything about it. And these people, I'm talking about Chinese are doing whatever they want to do. They are converting the Holy Land into a mess land. That's what they do. And this is unbelievable. This is the only pious area in the world we had, Tibet. And the world is quiet, sitting, enjoying, writing, thinking, but not doing anything. So therefore, I have to say these few things, but I can talk much more than that. And I have discussions on these lines with His Holiness Dalai Lama many times. And we were together many times too on these things. But I had factual things also. And he knows those. But he is a sage and he has to protect his people. By the way, it may not be relevant, but I'm saying to you, I also attended in that place a big, will you believe, dress competition of the girls of Tibetan background. Can you believe it? And then there was a competition for the queen of Tibet. The girls were dressed like that. See what is going on in the culture? Culture has been changing so often. And I was a judge, by the way, at that time. I said, I couldn't believe what's going on here. Judge means judge of the competition. So these are the kind of things that are happening. And even in India, I mean, they are not getting the real knowledge because India also is a very confused country at this time. There are some people who are good, some people who are indifferent, some people like their civilization, some people don't like their civilization. So Tibetan people were the piousest people in the world, and they have been messed up. And I think civilization will never forgive them for that. And of course, you are the man in the middle because what else you can do? You have to get whatever you can get. But they will not give you, believe me. China is not going to do anything to anybody. Nobody, they know it. Nobody will do anything about it. They are ready to take away India's land too. They already are taking over Pakistan areas too. They are not going to give up anything. So I think I've talked enough, and I have a great person to talk about these things. He has written an article long time ago. I read that article. So I'll ask Dr. Adityanji to say something, please.
Namaskar. Thank you, Ambassador Agnihotri, for inviting me. And I have quite a bit to say, and I will be going on a very fast pace. I am going to share my PowerPoint and screen, so I hope you are able to see it. I have multiple conflicts of interest. I am involved with several organizations, including Council for Strategic Affairs, International Commission for Human Rights and Religious Freedom, and I am also affiliated with the FISI. But today what I'm going to speak is going to be strictly in my personal capacity. I will also make a disclaimer that my viewpoints are mine. They do not represent the viewpoints of Government of India, US government, or any other organization. These are strictly personal views. And I'm going to speak the truth, only the truth, nothing but the truth. So let me start with this verse from Mundaka Upanishad. Satyameva jayate nanratam. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. Yenakram nratyasyo hayapta kama. Yatra tat satyasya param nidhanam. Translating into English, truth alone wins, not falsehoods. By truth, the path of devas is widened, and that by which the seers travel on, having nothing to wish for, to where there is that the highest treasure attained by the truth. So all of us have to focus on the truth. Ambassador Agnihotri talked about my earlier article that was published in 2008 in the Chennai Center of China Studies website. And surprisingly, the same website or think tank republished the same article entirely, full 6,500 words. And the title of the article was Tibet Question, Options for China and Implications for India in July's 1621 version. And in this 2021 article, they put this picture of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And of course, this was the original article published there. You have the URL there. And in that article, I discussed in depth response from India-based Tibetan refugees, response from Western-based Tibetan refugees, response from Dalai Lama, response from Dharmashala-based Tibetan government in exile, and future escalation of protests by Tibetans in the autonomous Tibetan region. I also posed questions what China would do, and I'm not going to go over these because you can read the article because I have a lot of things to say for the future. As Ambassador Agnihotri has said that international community dropped the ball, they did not do anything. And I systematically analyzed the response of the UN, US, International Olympic Committee, because it was written coincident with Summer Olympics of 2008, Russian response of human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. And then I actually talked about what could India do. And in that process, I talked about what should Indian government do, what should be the response from Indian civilizational and spiritual leadership, what should be the response from Indian civil society institution, response from Indian media, response from Indian communist parties, response from non-communist political parties in India. So response of India is not a unitary response. There are different players and different responses. And as far as response from India was concerned, I had suggested that there could be tactical response from the then UPA government of India and long-term strategic response in Tibetan policy, etc., etc. So let me go a little bit into geography. Now, this is the map of Tibet, which China has subdivided into various provinces, what they call TAR, Tibetan Autonomous Region, is only a small part of Tibet per se. So Qinghai, Amdo, Kanze, and some other provinces were part of original Tibet that China has subdivided from TAR. So you see the map of Tibet before 1950, and this is only the TAR portion. Again, the same thing, an old British map of Indian Empire. So you see next to Indian Empire is what? Not China, but Tibet, and then Chinese Empire. And if you go in this article, the red area is the original China. Only that area. Rest of it is Tibet. Here there was the nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek. This is the Xinjiang region, Mongolia, etc. So China has been an imperialist, expansionist state that has actually captured the peripheries, whether that is Tibet, whether that is Eastern Turkestan, whether that is Southern Mongolia, whether that is Manchuria. And that needs to be understood in the context of Tibet. I'm going to focus on what should be the future of Tibet and what should Tibetans do, mainly the CTA. And I'm going to talk about some strategies and tactical responses. So I would suggest the CTA should adopt a multi-pronged, multi-dimensional approach. CTA must not exclude any tactic except for violence. All options should be on the table. CTA should focus on winning the war without fighting the battle, using classic Sun Tzu strategy. CTA, first of all, should reconsider naming Tibet back to what was its original name in Sanskrit, and that was Trivishtapa. Trivishtapa refers to name of a tirtha or a pilgrim's place mentioned in Mahabharata. It is confluence of heaven, earth, land, and sea. So tri-junction, a holy tri-junction, it is basically the heavenly abode. Why you should define yourself as Trivishtapa, not Tibet? Because that tells the cultural affinity with India and not with China. Because Trivishtapa is not Chinese language. Sanskrit is not Chinese language. So you go back on to your ancient history. Renaming serves a political purpose because it defines your narrative. Renaming also takes away Chinese arguments about China having suzerainty over Tibet. I would say that CTA should raise its international profile. CTA should send representatives in all the international meetings, whether academic, scientific, geopolitical, climate, business, or religious. CTA should apply to join international organizations wherever People's Republic of China is not a party or is not present, like International Criminal Court. China is not a party to that in The Hague. CTA should join human rights organizations and UN agencies on an observer status. And there are precedents for that for Palestine, which is not a nation state, but is still as observer of number of international agencies, including International Center for the Prevention of Crime, UNESCO, UNICEF, UNHCR. CTA should submit the membership application to these organizations every year. Even if it is not accepted, it brings you in the limelight. CTA has something called OOT, Office of Tibet. OOT has representative offices in 13 countries. These offices act as de facto embassies of the CTA and are based in the following countries: in New Delhi, India, Kathmandu in Nepal, Washington, DC, Geneva, Switzerland, Tokyo, Japan, London, UK, Brussels, Belgium, Canberra, Australia, Paris, France, Moscow, Russia, Pretoria, South Africa, Taipei, Taiwan, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now, 13 countries out of 193 countries of United Nations. What CTA needs to understand that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. You have to be Machiavellian. I think as a starter, you should enunciate one China, one Tibet, one Taiwan, one East Turkestan, one Mongolia, and one Manchuria mantra, because that gains you allies. That gives strength to other states that have been occupied by China. So you develop some bonding, some kinship. CTA should give unconditional recognition to the Republic of Taiwan as the sole and democratic representative of the Taiwanese people inhabiting the islands of Taiwan and Penghu. CTA should arrange virtual summits between Sikyong, Penpa Tsering, and the President Tsai Ing-wen. CTA should negotiate a mutual assistance and friendship treaty with the government of Taiwan, and Tibet should provide Taiwan with a Tibetan military squad to be trained by Taiwanese army, Taiwanese military in the current confrontational mode when it is anticipated that People's Republic of China might invade Taiwan. CTA should open offices and embassies in countries with which PRC does not have diplomatic relations. And there are 14 countries with PRC does not have diplomatic relations. And these are mentioned here: Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Paraguay, Nicaragua, Eswatini, Belize, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, Marshall Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, Palau, Tuvalu, Nauru, and Vatican City. CTA should approach all these 14 countries for mutual recognition and bilateral friendship treaties. China recently had tiff with Lithuania over Taiwan. CTA should open an office in Lithuania. China has long-standing problems with Vietnam. CTA should open an office in Vietnam. China has problems with Philippines over Scarborough Islands. CTA should open an office in Philippines. And once now Duarte is on the way out, new elections are taking place. With the new president of Philippines, you need to develop better equation. Somaliland is an internationally unrecognized country that has de facto independence, and currently Chinese government and Somaliland government are fighting. and Somaliland government tells China that you go to hell, CTA should open an embassy in Somaliland. CTA should take lead and recognize Somaliland and ask Somaliland to recognize Tibet as an independent country. So you have quid pro quo between both the government, Somaliland and Tibetan government. And Somaliland can actually provide you land for developing your own army. There is an organization called UNPO, Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, with a total membership of 49. Tibet is a part of it. Tibet needs to raise its profile and recognize all the members of UNPO on reciprocal basis to increase Tibet's international visibility and profile. Just by the way, the city of Washington, D.C. is also part of UNPO because it does not have democratic representation in United States government. CTA and International Campaign for Tibet must coordinate with international organizations. Of course, that has already been done. I think in the Summer Olympic of 2008, Tibetans, hundreds of them did self-immolation that did not serve any purpose. So don't sacrifice yourself, strengthen yourself. Sacrificing yourself for China is not going to get you independence. Tibetan youth, wherever they are residing, should take martial arts, archery, firearms training, and flying lessons. Tibetan diaspora and youth should create armed militias wherever it is legal. United States is legal to have armed militias. You can develop your de facto and de jure armed militias in the United States. There are 6 million Tibetans in Tibetan Autonomous Region, but there are 7.5 million Hans in that area. You are losing your country. There is Sinicization and Hanization of Tibet going on. You are minority in your own country. It is very important for ethnic Tibetans not to marry ethnic Hans because you lose your race, you lose your culture. With China abandoning the one-child policy and starting second and third child policy, Tibetans under occupation of China should increase their fertility and relative population proportion. So Tibetan diaspora also must increase their fertility rate eventually for returning a part of that population to independent Tibet. And I would suggest that however pious you may be, please do not encourage celibacy and monkhood amongst the young Tibetan youth. Otherwise, your race will disappear. Tibetans in the occupied Tibet should not serve in the CCP. They should join the PLA, of course, because you will get military training that may be useful for you in future. And you will get inside information from the PLA. You should spread Buddhism and its relationship with Sanatan Dharma. You should organize civil disobedience in China. Tibetan youth should learn Tibetan and Mandarin, but also English, Pali, and Sanskrit informally, because otherwise you lose your culture. All your holy textbooks are in Pali and Sanskrit. What should diaspora, Tibetan diaspora do? Manage the media, print, electronic, and social media. Start lawfare. This is a concept Chinese the Communist Party is using. So you should adopt lawfare. Train in international law, file multiple lawsuits against China and CCP in any available jurisdiction. Start a propaganda war, media and political warfare, make documentaries, write articles, op-ed pieces in international newspapers. You should work, you have strong allies in Hollywood, Richard Gere, Uma Thurman, Sharon Stone, Goldie Hawn. Make a biopic of Dalai Lama that it becomes an international major star. Start new businesses and startups. The Tibetan diaspora should create wealth that could be used for future resistance. Tibetan diaspora should focus on information technology and computer sciences so that you develop technical expertise for cyber warfare against Chinese government. CTA should declare unilateral adherence to the MTCR regime, for which China is not a signatory. CTA should submit an application for membership of MTCR. CTA should submit an application to join CPTPP, Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, in which China is not a member and has just submitted an application because they want to negate the application of Taiwan. So you should actually go one step further and submit your own application. CTA should consider purchasing some merchant marine ships for commercial purposes. So you have a merchant navy branch. And CTA should apply for membership of the UNCLOS for the right of access to landlocked states to and from the sea and freedom of transit under Part 10 of the UNCLOS. CTA should take ownership of Tibetan nationhood concept. Middle pathway is not going to get you anywhere except for getting annihilated. Propagate the nationhood of Tibet. Be prepared for independence of Tibet eventually. Don't rely on government of India or US government to deliver independence to you on a platter. That's not going to happen. You'll have to work very hard for your own independence. Learn from the Israeli experience before 1947, how that tiny community managed a nation. Exploit loopholes in China's policies, do psychological warfare by influencing Tibetan people residing on Indo-Tibetan border areas. Tibet's dharmic diplomacy versus China's wolf warrior diplomacy should be contrasted. Start developing relations with all the dharmic countries, irrespective of China's presence or relationship. There should be virtual summits between His Holiness Dalai Lama and King Rama X, Vajralongkorn of Thailand. Virtual summits between His Holy Dalai Lama and Emperor of Japan Naruhito. That is going to give you international mileage. And lastly, a very sage advice to my Tibetan diaspora friends. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Ashwam naiva, Gajam naiva, Vyaghram naiva cha, Ajaputram balim dadatu, Devo durbala ghataka. Not the horse, not the elephant, not the tiger, but only the lamb, the son of a goat, is sacrificed in a ritual. God also does not protect the weak. So be strong. That's how only you will get your independence. And that's the end of my presentation.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good.
Great presentation, Adityanji,
Very
as
good.
always. Shishji, you want to say something?
This is excellent.
Any other comment?
Yes, no comments.
I read his book in 2008. Not book, the article. That's why I requested him to make presentation today. Okay. Any comment? Please, you're the leader. Vivekji, you run the show.
Yes, so I think some of the similarities what Dr. Adityanji was showing, which you can parallel by Indian independence also, that and some of the points were also mentioned during this talk, that you don't want Tibet's independence only for Tibet. Tibet has to be independent for world because it has so much to offer. India had to be independent because India had so much to offer to the world. So that takes away that a smallness, littleness that I want to get freedom for my country. You are working for the entire world when you are getting your country independent or free from the claws of China. Anyone wants to have any question or comments? Or
Roji is here or not?
Girishji wants to say something. Yes, Girishji, please.
Girishji.
Please unmute yourself.
Adityanji's presentation was very impressive, but one thing I would like to mention is, for all these activities, the Tibetan organization, where does it get the money from?
I can answer that, and that's why I'm saying that the Tibetan youth should create wealth. Be an entrepreneur. Nothing stops, There's Tibetan diaspora in this country, there's Tibetan diaspora in Europe. These are free countries. There's Tibetan diaspora in India. And there are a lot of, new startups are coming. So you have to, even you don't have a country, you should create startups, start business. I'm giving ideas, what areas you can exploit.
And I think I agree with Adityanji that money will never be an issue if you really want to take up any work.
All right. And we have got two people. One is BMW and one is Jesus. What are those people?
Do not know who are these.
Who are they? BMW and Jesus.
And there's one 2008.
2008.
I mean, there should be names.
Yeah. So we can remove BMW.
BMW and Jesus, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, why do you want to remove me? I'm listening to the conversation.
Okay,
Identify yourself.
BMW.
what is BMW?
No, I just called it BMW. That's all.
So what's your name, sir?
Ron.
Ron. Because it's a very small group or a smaller group, and we would like people to be bring their identity, who they are in this conversation, so that they can participate. So can you please open your video if you don't mind?
Vivekji,
Yes.
Madhu Agarwal wants to say something.
Madhuji?
Hanji, namaskar. So I have one question. कि जब उन्होंने जो countries के नाम बताए, those countries are very small countries. And I don't think they have any world power. Those 14 countries he named, And so I don't think that will help at all. If they are
The choice is to not do anything and indulge in whataboutery. I think these are the tactics by which you raise your international profile. I think what has happened that since 1950 onwards, since China invaded Tibet, Tibetan diaspora, Tibetan refugees have been asking government of India to do something for them. And that's not going to happen. It's your country, you need to take ownership, you need to take all the loopholes, need to use all the Machiavellian tactics to get into the limelight and get the international support, or just stay status quo and get annihilated, which is happening. There are 7.5 million Hans in TAR and only 6 million Tibetans.
Lakshaji, you can talk.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for this
Yeah, sure.
presentations and comments. So yeah, this is very helpful, very conventional strategies used by many countries and many groups, like looking at Israelis or looking at different independent movement. I think Tibetan diaspora and Tibetan people inside Tibet definitely will benefit from some of these strategies. So that's one thing. And I think Vivek's point, looking larger beyond political independence and what's next after Tibetan independence? What can we do? I think, and I suppose that's where Tibetan led by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, currently we are focusing on almost like a cultural renaissance and reviving Tibetan heritage, Tibetan civilization, not just in diaspora, but also like last 30, 40 years, a lot of Tibetans coming to India and train and sent back to Tibet and reestablish Tibetan Cultural Center, and even at the cost of their lives in different prosecutions and all of that. And that that has been going on also around other countries. I think some of Dr. Gidyanji's recommendations and suggestions, working with other quote unquote dharmic countries. And it's addressing socio-economic and living standard and basic issues. Those are also addressed through those. It's interesting to hear from Dr. Atityenji regarding Tibetans being trained in Taiwan and the militias, you know. Even their process we have observed in Indian government, you know, like how like a transformation Tibetan training first in CIA and then embedded in Indian Army and yeah, Tutu forces, and how different transformation took place with the support of the Indian government, and Tibetan independent movement advocated for such thing, either within Nepal, either with the different any support, like any support possible. I think focusing on how Tibetan identity and Tibetan civilization based on, broadly speaking, Guru Shishya relationship and Guru Shishya civilization, I think that is really critical as a backbone and foundation of Tibetan movement and Tibetan. I think that needs to be, from my point of view, that needs to be strengthened, whether it's a diaspora, and how can we strengthen that in Tibetan people inside Tibet. And that's Tibetan diaspora, we are facing that challenge. We're facing that challenge. I'm sure a lot of people living in diaspora and abroad feel that. Second generation, third generation, and so forth, like that challenge. So we are trying to, there are different groups using social media, using the information technology, and especially focusing on preserving culture and religion, and use any kind of multi-identities and citizenship in different countries as an asset, and try to influence different respective governance and polity and politics. That's I think yeah, it's a very different platform, very different. Yeah, it's a, we have to switch a little gear. Like it's no longer like a host country India. It's different challenges when diaspora Tibetan coming in the West or coming everywhere. So it's a different experience.
So thank you, Professor Nawang. Unless anybody wants to say a few things, I think it's time for us to close our event for today.
We just want to thank Maheshji. Nice to see you back. I hope you are healthy. Okay. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.